The Calgary Stampede is getting lots of attention in the national media this year, but probably not the type of coverage it wants. Here's what TV viewers heard last night during the main network newscasts.
4 horses have now died at this year's Calgary Stampede, 3 of them just yesterday.
Global National with Kevin Newman.
Animal rights activists have new fuel for criticism of the Calgary Stampede. 4 horses have had to be euthanized in little more than 24 hours.
That was the news on CBC television and Global Television last night. Now, John Larsen is a principal with Corpin Group. It's a PR firm in Calgary that specializes in corporate crisis management. And John joins me in studio this morning. Good morning, John.
Good morning, Kirk.
So what do you think of the way the Stampede has handled the deaths of animals this year?
Well, let's look at that from 2 perspectives. I mean, number one is what actions are they taking? That's what people are really looking at. And they have been making changes. I mean, they have been making some changes, and they're positive. We look at the tie-down, one that's got a lot of coverage over the last few weeks. And then the other side of it is how are they communicating? When these things happen, people want to see sympathetic communication. And I think generally they've done a fairly good job of that. They've also got some advocacy out there. I mean, the Calgary Humane Society said that they're working with the Stampede in these sorts of instances. I think one of the things, though, Kirk, that probably confuses people to some degree is some of the messaging, particularly around animals enjoying this. There's certainly some teamwork when you look at some of the horse events, but the tie-down, do those animals enjoy it? That confuses people, I think.
Right. And how important is it for the Stampede to get even their participants on message or to come up with message? One of the comments, the cowboy who got off the horse that broke its back and had to be put down, the quote in the paper was, "I kind of feel bad, but that's the rodeo and life goes on. You can't have it perfect every day."
Yeah, and certainly, you know, that sounds a bit cold, but within the industry, I'm sure that he is an individual that loves his animals and that understands what these animals do, and I don't think he meant it in any way outside of that. I mean, I think to say that the sort of willful cruelty would be far too much. I don't believe that at all. I think the Stampede is a great event. It's respected by many people. What they have to do is they have to continue to show that they're migrating with social values and with people's values in terms of how these animals are treated.
Animal rights activists are clear. They want the rodeo banned, but how concerned should the Stampede be when it comes to everyday people who come to see the action?
Well, that's an industry question, right? I mean, the Stampede is really, we in Calgary were hosts of a large industry event, and so I think the industry overall has to look at what they need to do and how they're going to continue to make changes. And again, just to reinforce that they have been making changes, what people are going to say is, are you making enough changes? Are you making them in a timely fashion?
The national media seems to really pick up on these stories. Are there comparisons between animal deaths at the Stampede and other negative stories out of Alberta?
I would think that would be sort of apples and oranges. I mean, really, this is, again, it's an industry type of story. Animals themselves, they're always a catch point for this kind of emotional debate. And in fact, one of the groups that has been pressuring the Calgary Stampede is the same group that pressured the British government to stop the fox hunt. So anytime you have animals involved, it's always a touch point for core emotion and to really heat up that debate.
Right. I think one of the things I'm hearing when I talk to people, though, when they hear that the national media has picked up on these stories, it's just another case of the national media pointing out these things in Alberta as sort of an us versus them kind of thing. Is that what's going on?
I don't think so. I mean, I think what we're really exploring here is a couple of different things. Number one is, what do people deem to be acceptable risk? And there are a lot of events that go on during Stampede that people say, this is a great event, there's acceptable risk here. But then there are other ones where they're on the fence. And, you know, we look at the chucks and we look at what's happening there, for example. And then the other thing is sort of that values proposition is when we look at tie-down, for example, that raises these sorts of questions. So I don't think it has to do with one region versus Alberta. I think it has to do with the intrinsic human values that people hold.
You've mentioned what the Stampede is doing to manage this issue. Does there come a point, though, when they talk about how much they love the animals and how much this hurts them, but the deaths continue to happen? Does there come a point when that message becomes disingenuous?
Yeah, you know, that's a great question, and I think really that becomes a matter of general public opinion on what the sincerity of that message is. I think Stampede and other organizations like it, there are 3 main things they have to do to make a message like that stick. Number one is, what are they doing to mitigate these things? So as we look at it year over year, can we legitimately put hand on heart and say they're doing enough, they're trying to change things as we go through and as they review these things? Number 2, are they acknowledging And are they being sincere in terms of their messaging? And as I said earlier, I think they are. There are some very unfortunate things that have happened. And then that leads to the third thing is, what are the changes? Do we honestly believe that in addition to trying to mitigate these things and acknowledging these things, that they're actually changing? And again, that sort of, it floats up. It becomes more of an industry type question for rodeo overall.
Well, and earlier you mentioned the fact that they have made changes. One of the big changes was the new rule for steer wrestling. If the steer falls with its legs under its belly, the judge ends the run and the competitor can't try again until the next day. Right. That encompasses steers, but we have horses dying. So that was something that the Stampede put a lot of stock in this year and talked a lot about going into this year's Stampede. But does that again get lost when other animals are dying?
It depends on how many, I think, and it depends on what the frequency of this is. We're looking a lot at Calgary right now. It'd be interesting to look at Las Vegas. It'd be interesting to look at Edmonton.
Sure. And
sort of the industry overall, and I think that's where they have to take the lead from. Here, it's a very emotional debate because we have had several instances. I mean, we've lost a lot of horses over the last 14, 15 years, and so that's what gets people going. I think you're always going to have this debate, and at the end of the day, the question really becomes: are they going to take a grand leap? Are they going to cancel a major significant event like perhaps the Chucks, because that's the one that seems to draw all this attention, and that's something that the people that do this on a yearly basis, they have to look at. Well,
and that was my next question. And looking around at other rodeos in North America, some of them have banned actual events. Right. Is it time for that bold move?
And that could well be. It would be inappropriate for me. I don't know enough about the industry to say yes or no. But certainly the way I would frame it is, what are the mechanisms to read public opinion on this? How is the industry itself set up? And what can you do to continue to advance it in the way that you can carry the support that you've had for over 100 years?
John, thank you very much for this.
Thank you so much.
John Larsen is a principal with the Corpin Group. It's a firm here in Calgary that specializes in corporate crisis management.